Hello and welcome to Ruggles Roundup. It's the portion of our Elevated Mission podcast where we talk about all things sports. We're super excited to bring this episode to you. What team can let Russ cook? That is the question of the night. We've got Russell Wilson looking for a new home. Ian, where you got Russell fitting in?
Well, there's a lot of different teams that need a veteran quarterback. Now that he's been released by the Denver Broncos, it becomes a lot more realistic option because nobody wanted to take in that huge contract. And
Right.
Now he's getting paid by the Broncos, and so he could probably sign a pretty league-friendly deal to whatever team he goes to and really help out a squad for pretty cheap. And so we'll start off with my least favorites fits and then go all the way down, as I think I got 5 different teams here that
Okay.
I think I like, as starting off with the New England Patriots. I think if any team's willing to take on the personality of Russell Wilson, it's the New England Patriots. They've had kind of funky personality quarterback for years in Tom Brady, and I think they got a squad that could complement him, especially with that third overall pick. If they decide to go with a Marvin Harrison Jr., you then add in Russell Wilson into that team. That could be a quick turnaround for a team that looked really poor this last year.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I agree with you on this. Would be one of my lesser fits for Russell Wilson. I do think they're in need of a quarterback, a veteran presence. Obviously, he's a positive guy, maybe ultra positive. That was part of his poor fit in Denver. Once Sean Payton got there, Sean Payton, not the most positive guy in the world. Really good coach, but not that positive guy. So that was kind of the not good fit. But I do think there was a little bit of a great thing that happened for Russell Wilson this last year was that he was able to rebound and show that he still could play football. He could still play in the NFL. So that super important for him. He gets released. Everything is in his favor right now, but I would hate to see him go to the Patriots purely because I don't think that offense fits as well as some of these other options for Russell Wilson's game.
Oh, absolutely. Let's move on quickly to the next option then, as the Las Vegas Raiders at my second option there, as their team that desperately needs a quarterback. They have some nice defensive pieces and Max Crosby and a young defense there that can get after the quarterback. And then just on the offensive side, you got a team that has Devontae Adams still there. I mean, arguably the best wide receiver in football available to you, and you don't want to waste that guy just sitting there trying to figure out your quarterback option there. And so I do think that the Las Vegas Raiders give him a little bit more of a spot to thrive, and I think they'd be able to evolve that offense to figure out how to fit Russ into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really know where the Raiders are at offensively right now. We got new coaches in, right? We had, a coaching change mid-season last year for the Raiders. So we're still up in the air. What does the Raiders offense look like at this point? But if they're willing to fit it to Russell Wilson, could end up being a nice fit there. And, maybe he likes the dry weather there in Vegas.
Yeah, not a bad fit, but I do prefer these next 3 fits significantly more, and we'll now move on to the Washington Commanders. I think they're a team that has the ability to make a lot of different movements here. They could decide to get their quarterback in the draft, but I think there's a lot of teams that would love to move up into that number 2 spot. They get a Russell Wilson, they can trade back, get a piece of that really deep receiving core that's in the draft this year, surround him with talent as they already have Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin, and a young defense that's up and coming. And so I don't mind this spot for him, just because they're a team that's so young, trying to rebuild. You then give them a few more years to, even if they did decide to take the quarterback at that number 2 overall spot, you can let that quarterback develop, as I think even Drake May, if that's your option, needs a year to develop. And if you sign Russ to a prove it deal, you can kind of have him develop, and then after he does his thing over there in Washington, you can then move him on to the next team, whichever one wants to pick up his contract.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator, right? In his that's that he's a defensive minded guy. I think defensive minded coaches really work well with Russell Wilson if he's able to, keep the interceptions down, play Russell Wilson football, stay positive, move the ball, do the right veteran thing. And so he fits well with a defensive minded head coach. I don't hate this landing spot for Russell.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point there. He did fit great with Pete Carroll, and I think that he'll fit well with that defensive mind. And I think you take that defensive mind to the next level when you talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and his
Oh
fit
yeah.
there. Kenny Pickett is not the solution there. They weren't able to get it done. They have a lot of receiving talent. They've drafted, I mean, that Pittsburgh always feels like they're drafting receiving talent well. They always got dudes there back from when I first started watching football, and they had Emmanuel Sanders, A.J. Brown, as well as Mike Wallace all on the squad as on rookie contracts, and then continued to just draft really good talent there. And now they have some really nice guys with Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and other great players as well. You get him there with a team that always has a good defense. I mean, they're able to win as many games as they did this last year with a negative point differential. And so I think you get him. He can move that into the positive point differential, not make mistakes for that offense, and just run the ship right.
Black and yellow, black and yellow. I like this fit a lot. Love to see Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh getting it done. I think, you know what? His positivity would fit in great with that culture there. I think that would be almost a perfect fit for Russell Wilson at this point in his career. I think we'll see. We'll see if that comes to fruition, but I really like the Pittsburgh Steelers fit for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think when you talk about like all of personalities and what he's succeeded with, this may be the number one spot, and you could definitely talk me out of my number one team fit in this option. But I think every quarterback fits well in my next option, and that's the
Oh yeah.
Minnesota Vikings. I just think that there's nobody else that doesn't have the quarterback decided and has the amount of receiving talent that the Minnesota Vikings have with Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. It is hard to match that. I mean, they're up there with the Cincinnati Bengals when you talk about receiving talent that they can put out there. And so if I'm Russ, I want to get to a place where I can prove that I still am that guy, because you're probably going to have to sign a pretty small contract wherever you're at to prove it. And Vikings is a perfect situation for him to go out there and prove that he still has the arm to be able to lead a team for, nice runs. And I mean, he could go out there and even prove that, hey, I'm just as good as Kirk Cousins. Everyone's talking about Kirk Cousins on the free agent market, but I haven't had that kind of receiving talent out there. As I think his number 3 was Samaje Perine over with the Broncos.
Yeah.
And so you then just get so much more weapons out there with the Minnesota Vikings. And so that's why I put the Minnesota Vikings as the number 1 spot. But Pittsburgh Steelers and Minnesota Vikings, that's 1A, 1B when you're talking about trying to develop Russell Wilson as a player.
Yeah, I don't hate this fit for Russell. I'm just not sure that the Vikings should come off Kirk Cousins to go get Russell. So, I mean, again, you talk about contract monies, all those kind of things, and those all start to come into play. You have to get a guy up to speed in your offense. I'm not sure that I want to make that move if I'm the Vikings. I think Vikings still have a squad that's competitive next year. So, to bring in a new quarterback can, be a challenge, and get him fully in the Vikings mode, with an offense he's never been a part of before. And so that's the only question I've got. I think, yeah, he could come in, he could play there. They play in a dome, so I like him. He doesn't have to play in a bunch of inclement weather. Although he played at Wisconsin, so it's not like, and he played in Seattle, so he's played in some inclement weather. So not that that's the biggest issue, but as a veteran quarterback, older guy, usually they want to, it's like snowbirds, they want to move south and play in warmer climates, but you get the dome in Minnesota. So, I don't hate that. I guess for me, I think I lean Steelers, just really more from the team side of things than on the Russell Wilson side of things. So.
Absolutely. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers could be one of those spots that holds on to Russell Wilson, where I view Vikings as more of a spot where they probably draft a quarterback at that number 11 spot, whichever the J.J. McCarthy, the Michael Penix Jr., whatever they are thinking about, and they develop a young quarterback under Russ as he does his prove-it deal with the Vikings, and then he goes to whatever team he gets his career, his finish off his career contract with, where I could see the Pittsburgh Steelers sticking with him for probably, 5 to 6 years, however long he wants to continue playing.
Well, thank you for watching and listening to Ruggles Roundup on the Elevated Mission podcast. Make sure if you're on YouTube, you click the subscribe and you click the like button. We love that you're out there listening and watching us talk about all things sports. We'll see you next time.